My name is Sheila Ryland, and I live in Clover, South Carolina. I've been a volunteer for Convention of States for about 2 years now, and I am one of 33,000 people in the state of South Carolina, many of them here today, that support the Convention of States Resolution H3125. Only that you support it, but that you also make it a top priority for this year. I do believe it's going to be the most important issue that comes before you this year. I'm worried about the debt that's being left by us, that my grandchildren and their children and yours will be responsible for paying. It's a debt so monstrous that we can't even fathom the numbers. Most Americans understand that the debt that we are facing is unsustainable, and if left unchecked, it will ruin the economy for future generations. I know this, and yet it felt like I was helpless to stop the federal government from enslaving my grandchildren and their children. You, though, can change this. As we've heard, Washington, D.C. is broken, and there's not much debate if you go around the country and ask people that. And to Washington, D.C., whether they're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, the problem grows. Our representatives in Washington won't listen to an individual like me. Big lobbyists and big money have their ear in Washington, D.C. And our founders predicted that this would happen. And they gave us a remedy right in the Constitution. It's written in Article 5 of the Constitution, and that remedy is you. The state legislators can vote to call a convention of states and bypass the Congress, the president, and all of Washington, D.C. This meeting today, right here, shows the brilliance of the founders. In all likelihood, I personally could not go to Washington, D.C. to testify about my concern. But here I am today in front of my state legislators, and you're listening. This issue of a convention of states to propose amendments is a nonpartisan issue. No matter which way your political ideology leans, Americans understand that the most important part of the decision-making process is who decides what the law will be, rather than what is decided. And I'm not alone in this belief. A few years ago, a comprehensive 2-month-long South Carolina survey was conducted by the Trafalgar Group. The survey found that, among other things, 79% of South Carolinians disapprove of the way Congress is handling its business. Very similar results were found in other states, so it's just not us. It is, the problem is in Washington, D.C. When asked who would prefer to make the laws that concern their everyday life, they wanted those decisions to be made as close to them as possible. Our founders intended for us to be a self-governing people, not a people ruled by an elite group in Washington, D.C. But today, because of the federal government has stepped away out of its constitutional bounds, and it has no intention of being restrained by them again, we are being ruled by an endless stream of laws and regulations that are being written by unseen and unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. with this power grab by issuing executive orders that bypass Congress. And they are being aided and abetted by a Supreme Court that continues to expand the federal government by its decisions. The evidence of this is the annotated Constitution, which I have right here. This is the federal government's Constitution of record. So when we talk about defending the Constitution, it's not our original document anymore. It is this document, 3,000 pages long. The original Constitution is contained in here, but it equals about 50 pages. The rest of it is all things that the Supreme Court, decisions that they've made that have altered or reinterpreted the intent of our original Constitution. The size of the annotated Constitution is a direct measure of the growth of power and jurisdiction. The annotated Constitution is also why a balanced budget amendment would not work. It would be easy for them to raise the taxes and say, we can't help it, it's under the balanced budget. So this is the power, this is the tool that the federal government has given to us to rein in the federal government. I know that those people who are here that want to block this effort, they have a reverence for the Constitution, and I understand that reverence for the Constitution. But the problem is just a reverence for the Constitution alone can't change this, what we have in actual reality now. And so the biggest reason is fear that they give. And what I would say is that we have to have the courage, because courage is the price of liberty. It always has been, and it always will be. If our generation is so frozen in fear, courage that it takes to call a meeting, then we are simply not worthy of our heritage, and I refuse to believe that. Thank you.
Go to conventionofstates.com, press the button, sign the petition. More importantly, get 10 of your friends to do the same. When you sign the petition, then that sends a letter to your state legislator. You go on the list in their district as a supporter. We deliver those lists to the state legislators. It means something to them.